Good afternoon, councillors and staff. Welcome to our April ordinary meeting. Please be advised that the council meeting is being recorded. By speaking at the meeting, you agree to being recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak, you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Cabonne Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. The recording of this meeting will be made publicly available on Council's website. I'll call the first item, which is applications for leave of absence. Can I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Oldham, second by Councillor Nash. I have one from Councillor Durkin and one from Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 2, declarations of interest. Could I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Weaver, seconded by Councillor Trevors. Does anybody have anything to declare? Nothing at all. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 3 is declaration for political donation. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Oldham, seconded by Councillor Newsom. Anything to declare? I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4 is the mayoral matter of appointments, which I'll move. I have tendered a report as to mayoral movements, and I'd also like to thank all the councillors for their attendance at the Anzac Day ceremonies across Sunday. I've had a lot of feedback about attendance at the ceremonies. It was very good that it was back up again this year after COVID, and so congratulations everybody and thank you for your attendance. Does anybody have anything further for the mayoral minute? Councillor Weaver.
Yes, Mr Mayor, although I had personal leave this month, I did attend the Anzac, and I'd just like to make special mention of our fire brigade and our rural fire. They did the setting up for the occasion, and they also manned the entries into the park for the COVID-19 project, or whatever you'd like to call it. But they also stayed back and tidied it all up and took all the chairs back to the club and tables back to the club. And I mean, they just do this in their uniform, and they've been doing it for years, but I don't know whether they ever get acknowledged for what they do. And I'd just like to pay tribute to them. Thank you.
Well said. Go about their business, no fuss and no bother. Deputy Mayor Jones.
Yeah, just if I could table a report, please, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else for the mayoral minute? Nothing? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Those carried. Item 5 is Committee of the Whole. Could I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Oldham, seconded by Councillor Trevors. Does anybody wish to call any items into the Committee of the Whole? Item 12. Yep. Item 12 by Councillor Batten. Thank you. Anything else for the Committee of the Whole? Stage? No. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That is carried. Item 6 is grouping of reports, and before I ask somebody to move that, I'll just draw your attention to it'll be items 7, 8 and not 9. It'll be 7, 8 and 10, not 9. 9 will stand alone. So could I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Batten, seconded by Councillor Davison. Anybody wish to discuss any of those grouping of reports at all? All happy? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Move to item number 9, which is the Inland Rail Conference at Albury-Wodonga. Could I first have that moved, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Jones, seconded by Councillor Weaver. So we have a Inland Rail Conference at Albury Wodonga on the 25th and 27th of May. Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, if I could nominate Councillor Nash to attend that one with the General Manager. If you actually look at the report and the theme of this year's conference, it's around connecting regions to that rail line, and I think we have some fantastic opportunities there at Manildra with our industrial land that we've identified there around connecting that to the rail line. So I think it would be appropriate for Councillor Nash as the councillor residing at Manildra to attend.
You happy to attend, Councillor Nash? Yes. Yep. Thank you. Any further discussion on that at all? No? I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, that's carried. Item 11 is Age of Fishers Museum transition. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Weaver, seconded by Councillor Nash. Councillor Weaver, would you like to speak to that at all?
I'd just like to say I'm glad to see the process started. And I mean, it's still got a long way to go, but it's a positive.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against it?
Oh, I don't want to speak against it. I've just got a question.
Question?
My question is, why do the operating expenses go from 120,665 plus an additional amount of 7,300 to be 262,494 with a deficit of 130,794? So my question is, in relation to the operating expenses, why have they basically doubled?
General Manager will answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor. The essential reason is when we're bringing the Age of Fishers into the business, so that their book stayed outside our financial system. So those numbers coming in show that obviously the income that is realised in their books separate from council. So this year, next year will be part of our books. So that's where that extra, it goes up to 262.
Sorry,
And so we pay wages of the manager and a vehicle at the moment, and some admin, as the first one states. So that will remain, but all the costs and expenditure that the Age of Fishers supplied us for their running of, which was through the board running of the business, the shop and entries, admissions, and all those sorts of things, has now come in and been forecast under our financial system, and that's what it equates to being that figure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but I still think a deficit of 130,000, how are we looking to make that up? I guess what we've got to do is have a plan in place to address that, because we can't have it growing each year.
So as the report states, traditionally it's always cost us 126,000 in expenses, and it's forecast at this point to run at 130,000 with the new process. So we're still, because we've always funded wages and the vehicle and some other things, it's an operating expense to council, but we've never got any income. It's all. This shows that the income coming in is projected at this point to be, within a few $1,000s, about the same.
Right.
The challenge is, as the report states, is that there may be unforeseeable costs with staffing and things now that it's fully a council-run operation that we'll have to come back to council and advise of. But the reality is we've got to run the facility at this stage 7 days a week for those hours of opening, so we've got to look at that. And we've got to try our best to keep the costs down, and God forbid we might make a profit one day, who knows? But that's the ambition of council, is to drive down the OPEX and increase income through initiatives and strategies, making it even more attractive tourist destination. But at this stage, on current projections, on the information given to us through the transition and the financials of the running of the business of Age of Fishers, it's basically will be a similar amount in the expense column at the end of the next financial year, being that around 130,000, which this year was 126 plus 7,300. So,
Right, okay, thank you.
does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Any other speaker for?
Mr Mayor, if I could just ask another question regarding the budget of the Age of Fishers. I think for us to be able to make money out of eventually, we'll have to spend some money to attract visitors to it, and that doesn't seem to be in the budget. And I think it's going to be quite a sizable amount of money. And I just ask council to carefully consider what they're going to do to advertise, promote, market this great facility.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So you would be aware, Councillor, we are in for Building Better Regions for enhancement of the facility, which is in the budget, so to speak, as a potential Building Better Regions application. It depends whether we get that or not. The other aspect is, obviously, this is a transition process, so we're going to be running it for the next 12 months. We'll identify the running situation under council, and obviously there's a lot of strategic work to be done and planning, and hopefully some reviews by people who are very competent in the museum space would be good to have a look at, and that is exactly where we're heading, Councillor.
Any further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, that's carried. Item 12 is in Committee of the Whole, so we move to item 13, which is Boranal Dam Water Supply Facility Unauthorised Dwelling. Could I just first have a mover of that? Moved by Councillor Trevor, seconded by Councillor Oldham. Now, I'm now seeking to have that matter deferred. I've had a request from the owner of the dwelling to have this matter deferred to a later meeting. So, everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Or I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against, that is carried. Item 14 is request for donations. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Trevors. So we have two requests there, Molong Hospital Auxiliary and Koori Kids NAIDOC Week School initiatives. Everybody happy with those two?
Yes.
Yes. No further discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Item 15 is Local Government Tourism Conference for 2021. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Oldham, seconded by Councillor Weaver. So we need to nominate a representative from Council to attend that conference in May. And I'll just note that Councillor Weaver is unavailable to attend that. Councillor Weaver.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Davidson to go in my stead. That'd be great.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson, you're able to attend?
Yes.
Any further discussion on that at all? No. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 16 is the sponsorship program. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Jones, yep. Second by Councillor Davidson. Did he say yes? Yep. All right. Any discussion on that at all?
I have a question.
Question by Councillor Weaver.
Sorry, am I going? Yeah.
You're right.
I just have a question in relation to the sponsorship applications as they look at the moment, and I believe that all of them are worthy of being granted sponsorship funding. I just have one question in relation to the Orange Field Day Co-op Limited in terms of the requested amount that they asked, which was 20,000, and they were allocated 15,000, whereas all of the other applicants have been granted the full amount, and just wondered why the difference was.
Yeah, Councillor, I can answer that as far as this was put to council previously, but the idea is obviously that if that was a substantive amount out of our sponsorship and equivalent to probably the signature event for Cabonne, being the Balloon Festival, traditionally got 20,000. It was a view to seeing the value, I suppose, and the return on investment by running them running the field days this time around, and we thought this conservatively was still a substantive amount of money, but 20,000 put it up to the level of the highest level that this council would give, has given in the past as sponsorship. And staff were of the view that the amount recommended and approved by council was commensurate with where it stood as an event. But obviously, we'll monitor how it goes this year, and if it's much more, I suppose, bang for buck, for want of a better term, for Cabonne, it may then be pushed up. And equally, there's always a proviso in these things, because it is such a new program, to find out if we don't get sufficient media and marketing benefits, we may have to review it also. So that's where it fell, and council supported that at the time.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just briefly address this matter. As councillors would know, on our recent event, or on our recent bus trip, which included Eugowra, we've seen quite a lot of tourism, a lot of tourists in the town looking at the murals and that, and that's been high. You know, Eugowra have really done a lot to highlight their tourism over the last couple of years through different programs and events, including Backroads on ABC. I think this is, like, if you look at this, it's $10,000, but it's also a greater benefit than just the weekend event to that community and to our shire with those, as I said, with those tourists coming to town, but also it beautifies the town, and I know it is, and they're also on the Silos Trail on the website, which on the internet, sorry, which is also they get a lot of people through. I know in 2020 this event they were planning to go ahead, but were impacted by COVID, and I just having had a little bit to do with Eugowra and some of the things they've been doing over there with these murals. I know it's quite an expensive event to put on, with insurances and bringing and highlighting a unique sort of talent, in terms of there's not a lot of those sign writer painters anymore. So yeah, I wish them all the best with their event. Thank you.
Councillor Weaver.
Yes, I totally agree with Councillor Jones. I think it's a credit to Eugowra. For a little town of just over 300 people, what they've achieved is incredible. And the number of people over a period of time that I've spoken to in Canowindra who are passing through have been to visit the murals at Eugowra, and are just so enthralled with them and the quality of them, that I think it is a credit, and I congratulate them sincerely. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, well said. Any further discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor, I fully support these applications. They're good. This morning I attended an Orange 360 meeting, which was very positive, I would say, and the tourist figures are really quite outstanding here in this district, in this region now. 1.8 million people was the last figure that was put forward to us at the meeting, and it'll be higher than that when the next audit's done, I'm quite sure. One of the things that was brought up at that meeting was that with the various individual events that we sponsor, either through these particular sponsorship ones, or else the events assistance program, I would like to see council consider putting another condition, if you like, and that's not quite the correct word, but that says that the people who receive this should be talking with Orange 360 to coordinate their events and to also coordinate their advertising and marketing. Now, Orange 360 spends about $1 million a year on selling the Orange region. And if we have an event which says sell the Orange region in a certain way, and then some other event comes in and selling it in a different way, you've got two messages which are not going to help one another. The idea is not for Orange 360 to take over the management of it, is to simply hold their hand and help them, to guide them along a path which is along the same path rather than diverging paths. And if we could just consider that, with all of these things, it would help. We put about $60,000 or $70,000 a year into Orange 360, plus what we put in through these events, and we want to make the most of of all of that money together. So if the council would like to consider that at a later date, I would certainly support it.
Any further discussion? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 17 is the Events Assistance Program. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by Councillor Newsom. All right. Any discussion on that at all? No? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with all of them.
Need a couple of lights off.
Oh,
Councillor Weir.
I just have a query as far as number 4 goes, for the Malong Community Telephone Book. That seems an awful lot of money. All up, you know, you're looking at $10,000 for a telephone book? Because? Oh, sorry. I thought,
Events Assistance Program 17. So we're only looking at the two donations, the Yagara Community Children's Centre High Tea and the 1500s for the Canowindra Old Time New Vogue Dance Group, Downton Abbey.
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's all right. Easy done. Any discussion on that? Everybody's happy with that? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against, that's carried. Item 18 is the Community Assistance Program 2020-2021 Round 2. Could I have a mover first, please? Moved by Councillor Batten, seconded by Councillor Nash. Now, this is where we're recommending, or the report is recommending, items 1 through to 9. And Councillor Weaver, do you wish to discuss something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to. I'd just like to know how they came up with a telephone book to begin with, and then it's going to cost $10,000 to produce it. That seems an awful lot of money to me for a telephone book for a small community.
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, I can shed a little bit of light on how they came up with the concept of the book. But I can't shed any light on the cost. The yarn market here in Molong is proposing that book, that telephone book, and the reason being that that no longer are people's telephones listed in the Telstra book, particularly if you have a mobile phone. So it's an initiative to actually make people accessible to the community and wider community telephone numbers. So in my own circumstance, for example, where I've only got a mobile phone, if I choose to be part of it, then my mobile telephone number would appear in that book, then making it accessible to people to contact me if they wish to do so. Similarly for anybody else that's got mobile phones and don't have a landline that doesn't appear in the Telstra book anymore.
The General Manager's indicating that it's actually in the application. He's had a look there and broken down a bit in the application. But I guess these days printing costs are quite high.
Can I make a comment on it, please?
Hang on a sec, I'll just get Councillor Mullins first. He got you.
Yeah, is the printer's quote in the papers? Because I couldn't see it. Look, I've been in touch with the proponent recently. They've got about 150 names out of the projected 1,500. It's an age-old project. $5,000 for printing. Let me tell you that for a telephone book. I support it. I think we should approve it in principle, but I guess I have to acquit it at the end of the day, I suppose. But it's if the ratepayers found out that we were spending $10,000 on the town's telephone book, I think they'd be horrified. I think if they've got to quit it, I support it in principle, but I would certainly need a bit more information. Now, the proponent has been in touch with me. We're advertising it again for people to get their names and numbers in. It might struggle to even see the light of day, actually. But it does seem a lot. I agree with Jim. It does seem a lot of money. But if we see I think you'll find that when the final product is produced, it will not cost anything like that to print. Anything like it. Particularly if they're getting advertisers to subsidise it.
Gentleman has just advised, for example, if the project goes ahead and the costing was lower than that, it's 50-50 funding, so they wouldn't be receiving the full amount of the 5,000. We'd be asking for the money back to be half of what the cost actually is.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to have to agree with Councillor Weaver on this because I don't think any of us probably even have a telephone book in our house. The second thing is that the council could really take the initiative on this and have it as a subheading on our council website of the Molong or any of the other communities that wanted to put together it's just a name and a phone number. Not going to cost anywhere near having to have it printed. I think there are better ways and more efficient and more up-to-date ways that you can produce a local telephone directory connecting locals with locals, and I don't think spending this sort of money, particularly coming from council, is warranted because we have 13 villages. Imagine if they all want to do one.
Yeah, look, I agree with you totally. Just one comment I'll say is that I guess, not trying to diverse a bit, but the telephone book's probably designed for people that are used to a telephone book, not so much. I mean, you and I and everybody here can go to the white pages and look it up on the internet, but this is obviously designed for people that still like a telephone book, so that's just one thing. But we can also, we don't have to approve the 5,000, we can reduce it back, if so be it. You don't have to, we can have general discussion. Does anybody want to reduce the price back at all?
I'd like to, but I think, can we also maybe ask Paul to run a survey in his paper if you want a local telephone book?
1,500 names, you could put them on your photocopy out here, fold it and put it on your front desk. And
Buttons, please.
for that sort of money, the council could put it on its photocopier and fold it and put it in every letterbox in Molong for 0.8 cents a copy. So there's other ways to kill this cat. That's why I'm worried about the printing. I don't know, it seems a monstrous thing for, if you were to put one in every house in Molong, of which there are about 350, well, it only cost $1 or $2 each,
Can,
I could put it in the paper.
discuss this any further? More? I'm quite happy to, but I also need committee of the whole, which we're getting out of hand here.
Just one quick comment if I could
Committee
make.
of the whole.
Yeah, I'll move that.
So all those in favour, committee of the whole? I need a seconder actually.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Davison. So go on. Yeah, Councillor Trevors.
Yeah, just in relation to that, my idea is that it's, again, with every other councillor, the cost is extreme. When you're talking that most people would know their friends' phone numbers, so why you would want a whole thing for the Molong community is beyond me, and if you do it for Molong, we'll have to do it for Yagara, Canoundra, so forth. If that's what they're looking for, just a community phone book. Most people know their friends and who they need to contact, so I can't see the sense of it as a ratepayers.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I appreciate your comment there, but I probably have to disagree slightly that I don't know your phone number, Greg, if I had to ring you. I mean, it's installed in my phone, but yeah.
I would think it's more, for me, it's more knowing the phone numbers of the businesses, because nearly all our businesses, including myself, we run on a mobile now, not a landline.
Yeah, I can understand that, yes.
So I can understand people wanting business numbers in a page that they could look it up, but
Well, would you like to have this matter deferred to get more information? Yes? Yeah. So, What number is that we're up to? It's an item number, sub-item number 4, was it? So who was the original mover of that? Councillor Batten, are you happy to just amend that we, well, at this stage, approve applications 1 through to 9 except for 4 and have 4 deferred? Yep. The seconder was? Councillor Nash, you happy with that, Councillor Nash? All right. Is there any other discussion on any other of those sub-items, 1 to 9, except for number 4?
If I could just, I found where the quote is for the printing. It's GK Proprietary Limited, and it's $5,400. Be good? It doesn't say. It just says expenses of 5. But it's on, I don't even know what page it's on. 286.
It's in their applications.
Yeah, it's in their application.
So that quote would be, I would imagine, would be on 1,500 names, was it, Councillor Mullins, was it? Yeah, so it would be based on 1,500 names or 1,500 phone numbers in this book, wouldn't it? So they've gone to the maximum of 1,500. Right. So are you still happy to have this deferred for more information? Yep. And is everybody else happy with the rest of 1 to 9?
No, I've got one question on I've been asked to ask. The water tanks at the showground, did they forget to include them with all those Splendorama grants they got to build this thing, or why were they forgotten?
Is that the water? Is that
The water tanks at the showground.
in the fine print note? Is that the? I'm just checking that for you.
Because we've got,
actually.
they've received a number of large grants out there for this thing.
I might. We take. Yeah. Look, I'm not 100% sure on this.
Okay.
Don't quote me, but maybe something to do with the bushfire tank.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. Yeah. I vaguely remember being asked a question about the bushfire tank, and that was a way around it. Why not the tank?
Because in the application, it's talking about 2 tanks with pump to a company for the new amenities block to supply rainwater to the amenities block for toilet and shower usage.
Yeah, they also had to offset a tank for bushfire fighting. But don't quote me whether that's for that. I'm not 100% sure.
It may also have been that to ensure the scope, councillor, so the scope may have been, they might have had to find some more money because the scope was to a certain degree and tanks were outside the scope of the grant. Not 100% sure, but I can take it on notice. But
Well, yeah, they've received 3 large grants in the last 18 months, like big ones, and there's another one coming for this year's show. And there's concern that, a fundamental thing like your water tank outside your amenities block, how that escaped them in that grant, which was $250,000, a couple $100,000, is amazing.
Well, I suppose just to answer that, look, we find this quite often, quotes that you get, that you go to the grant people with, when they come back and you get more on the ground and start having more defined design, etc., they may have come up short. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but that's quite often a problem we happen with all our grants, is that something like water tanks would be an ideal thing, I suppose, to take off the scope to satisfy one grant, and then they're obviously looking for council to assist with that extra bit of scope creep, I would suggest.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to further discuss that project. The scope of works has been reduced somewhat from the original concept, from quotations not meeting the reality of the market when going to tender, and there has been some items missed out in the original quotation when the application was put forward. So the size of the building has been reduced, and adding further elements onto that design wouldn't be able to be fitted within the current budget. I can confirm from the original plans there was no tanks indicated in the original quotation and design for the amenities block.
All right, back to the original. Sorry? We haven't finished yet. So 1 to 9, we happy with 1 to 9 minus 4. 4 being deferred. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Now could I have somebody move that we move out of committee of the whole, back to the ordinary meeting, moved by councillor.
I'll just ask a question, not regarding that, but just regarding item number 11 on that list is the age of fishes. And we've got a not recommended as the reimbursement of fees and development application et al. $6,500. Is that been taken into consideration in item number 11 on the business papers with the budgeting of the age of fishes? Because it seems to be out of one pocket into the other.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Council has sought funding for that project, and it is envisaged that all fees to develop that project up to the state of completeness will be within that budget, and therefore budgeting for it in this manner would double up the budget for the proposal to deliver the works.
Now, could I have somebody move that we move out of committee of the whole back to the ordinary meeting? Councillor Weaver, seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 19. Is Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Phase 2 approved program. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Jones, second by Councillor Trevors. Any discussion on that at all? Councillor Jones?
Can I just commend our Deputy General Manager of Infrastructure, because he's done quite a lot of work to get to this stage and to get us this 1.2 million. We've heard, I think we've all heard from our communities right across the Shire the importance of road, bridges and culvert maintenance, the Deputy General Manager did some work in getting some reports done, which was fantastic to work out the what needed to be done with these culverts and bridges, and we've been successful in getting this funding up, so it's a win-win for all parts of our Shire, which is fantastic.
Any further discussion on that at all? I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Item 20 is questions for next meeting. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Oldham, seconded by Councillor Davison. Does anybody have any questions for next meeting?
Mr. Mayor, actually, I would like to ask for two. The first one is, and it relates to the item in terms of the operational plan being moved into the Committee of the Whole. Could we get a report on the makeup of our current staff by portfolio, Deputy General Manager's portfolio and the leader, economy and community or community economy? What I'm looking for is a baseline, so of the picture of what our staffing looks like in terms of its diversity. So what I'm looking for obviously is, and I note where I'm referring to in the operational plan, we're talking about a balanced staffing structure. That obviously can be interpreted as a gender balance. So before you're in a position to make decisions about that and measure that in terms of the General Manager's performance, and then he in turn the Deputy General Manager, you need a baseline. So I'm asking for a report on the staffing makeup. The second one is that the New South Wales Government, people are probably well aware, have changed some planning requirements around farm stays and short-term accommodation on farms. In fact, the aim of the exercise is to free up the opportunity for farmers, obviously viticulturalists, to be able to have short stays on farm. So I'm interested, can we get a report on what the implications of that may well be for Cabonne if that is fully implemented? And I note that the consultation period actually closed, I think, last week for that. So it's, you know, it's closed in terms of us being able to respond. Obviously, I can see some implications myself in terms of our role as a consent authority from that particular exercise that the state government's undertaking. We need to keep an eye on it.
Through you, Mr Chair, there have been quite a series of workshops, Zoom meetings and the like, consultation at operational at staff level. As you say, the exhibition phase is just closed. We have provided a submission on that one. We have been part of the consultation process throughout. There is the situation, I suppose, of the policy. It's quite metro-centric in many ways. So there's been quite a lot of discussion, particularly within the Central West JO planners group. And one of the, I think, the intriguing things with it is that the state government doesn't actually have a definition of agriculture. So whilst there are initiatives, and many of them from a planning strategic level that we very much support and are actually encompassed within things like our agricultural sub-regional strategy, there's some really concerning things about that development as well. So we have had a considered input into that based as planning professionals and from the knowledge of our area and the work that we've done with Orange and Blaney as far as the sub-regional strategy. But yes, we can certainly inform you along the way.
Is this the policy around the 180-day region, etc.? 180 days and 360 days?
Through you, Mr Chair, it's quite a broad-ranging policy that's looking at introducing new definitions, and some of those actually conflict with existing land use definitions. It's a lot to do with characterisation, not just the performance measures within those. So it goes broader than that. That's a little bit, that is part of it, but this is actually looking at introducing much broader land use terminology that would address things, as Councillor Batten has said, of short-term accommodation.
It's interesting that Dubbo has adopted a 180-day regulation within that for the Airbnbs particularly. And that would have implications on us as well.
Does anybody have any other questions for the next meeting? No? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 21 is business paper items for noting. Could I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Nash, second by Councillor Jones. Now, does anybody have anything to call in the noting papers? Councillor Jones.
Just two items, please, Mr Mayor. Item number 11 on page 377 and also item number 15 on page 380, please.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to call? No? All right, we'll go to item number 11, which is the Eugowra floodplain management, completion of Puzzle Flat Creek levy. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of months ago I asked for a report, and I thank council staff for providing that to council, just in relation to the next stages. This council has been successful in building the Puzzle Flat Creek levy, which has been a project a long time in the making, and has taken a lot of hard work and determination by both council but in particular the community, and in particular Mr Bruce Noble. I just want to say that this is obviously the levy is stage one of this project. The next stage is looking at this floodplain management study, which I note we've have proposed in the next financial year's budget. We've proposed some funding to undertake that, and we'll be working with the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment to progress that further, which will be fantastic because as the community have said to us a number of times, and we recently all got to tour it, which was great, but it's really held back that eastern side of Eugowra with insurance levies and that. So this next stage of getting this study will be fantastic, and I certainly support the funding that is proposed in the upcoming budget, and hope the New South Wales Government continue to support us to open up that land in East Eugowra by reducing that floodplain. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And item 15 is Marlon Caravan Park Amenities Block Assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just want to thank council staff for their report on this one. Over the Christmas period, I had some visitors ask me to just have a bit of a look at our amenities block at the Caravan Park, and when I went and had a look, it was quite obvious that there had been, to me, it looked like there'd been quite a lot of sinkage of that building in one particular corner. And whilst our Caravan Park managers at Marlon have been doing a fantastic job in keeping up with the day-to-day cleaning and making it as presentable as possible, that facility has probably just seen better days. This report clearly states that is the case, that there is some sinkage, and that and I think with the ongoing tourism and the amount of people that Councillor Davidson has mentioned earlier today around Orange 360 seeing increasing visitor numbers, and we're seeing an increase in utilisation of that park. I think it's up to us to keep or to make sure that we have decent facilities there. I therefore would just encourage the future council in a future budget, in the 2022-23 budget, to look at putting some money aside for some plans to knock down and potentially rebuild a new utilities block there, as the report clearly states that that facility is not up to scratch. Thank you.
Thank you. There's nothing else called, so I'll now put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Item 23 is Committee of the Whole section of the meeting. Could I have somebody move that, please? Moved by Councillor Nash, seconded by Councillor Newsom. Thank you. Now we have item 12, called by Councillor Batten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With your indulgence, I have a couple of questions and one proposal for change in the operational plan, if that's okay. A question to the General Manager or the Deputy General Manager Infrastructure relates to the capital expenditure in the plant fund, asset purchases, major plant. We note there's a number of vehicle purchases there to be replacement vehicles, obviously. What my question is, as part of our sustainability strategy, I expect we should be moving to, at a minimum, hybrid vehicles. These vehicles that are identified, do they clearly identify as hybrids, or are they simply juice guzzlers? It's under the plant fund. It's 1405 and 14 and 50, yeah, page 14. I assume that the Prado is actually the Mayor's vehicle, and it may be appropriate that you even consider that we demonstrate our commitment to some environmental sustainability and look at whether that's an appropriate vehicle for the Mayor, or whether we should be looking at replacing it with a more fuel-efficient hybrid vehicle.
General Manager, would you like to answer that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. We are in a bit of a trial phase, Councillor. You might have noticed I've got a hybrid vehicle, and You'll also notice that the same model is being, actually the Deputy General Manager Services got the same model in a petrol. So without too much science, we've got the same type of vehicle, one hybrid, one conventional, because there is always, I suppose, an element of somewhat doubt or wanting to check whether the hybrid is in fact more sustainable. So we're going to do a compare and contrast over a short period to see whether that's feasible. Equally, we have got a hybrid, another hybrid vehicle in the fleet, which is being used as a pool vehicle. We gave it a fairly arduous test up Mount Nengar during the Australia Day Festival that only just passed. But yeah, so we are looking at the green fleet, and it is part of our renewable energy action plan. Just given where we are, I suppose, in the community, like we want to work towards even electric vehicles possibly one day, but the supporting infrastructure isn't keeping up. So similarly, we just want to test with hybrids that there's no unforeseen resale issues. We don't know really the resale. We know they're very popular in the first instance when you're trying to buy them, but how they're going to go resale. So we thought we'd just try and so there wouldn't be much movement in this year's budget, but hopefully the budget's going forward, we might be moving to a more sustainable fleet, and we would obviously bring that to council as part of our update on our renewable energy action plan. I'm not sure of the Mayor's preference of vehicle. I'm not going into that.
I'll just pass comment there. I think that the General Manager was not entirely correct there, actually. I have to correct him. The assessors on the Australia Day test said that the hybrid clearly failed. And the Mayor's Prado succeeded.
That got anything to do with the way the Mayor drives?
Can somebody just identify what's a hybrid? Where is it on this list? What's a hybrid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the hybrid is exactly that. So it's a half electric, half conventional petrol vehicle. So at the moment, there's hybrids in Toyota, in Camrys and RAV4s. I think there's other manufacturers have those combinations, and so they're not quite an electric vehicle and they're not quite a petrol one, and they're supposed to be substantially better on fuel. As the Mayor points out, there may be some other issues with them, but mine all-wheel drive, so it can get up the mountain. But it is quite. We've just got to work out whether they literally are financially viable, and also emissions, and importantly also we've got to run the fleet well. It's got resale value is important. So if they drop markedly for whatever reason because they're a used hybrid vehicle, we want to know about it. So we'll watch this space, I'd suggest.
Well, I drove that one down to Shell Harbour, which was a hybrid. It was a very strange thing to drive. When you can't hear anything and it just makes whiny noises at you.
Yeah, look, all seriousness, the Prado was the vehicle that was allocated, and the fleet told me that it's for resale purposes, that it turned out to be better to have the Prado than any other vehicle. So. But I'll take what I'm given.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My second question relates to the operational plan, and can I refer you to page 154 of the annexes if people want to go there. And it refers to staffing, develop, maintain, retain a balanced and skilled workforce. I alluded to this one in asking for the report. Mr. General Manager, through you, Mr. Mayor, the definition of a balanced workforce, what are we talking about? I mean, the obvious thing is that a gender balance is one thing, but I'm just wondering whether there was a broader definition.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't pretend to. I wasn't the author of those words, but it is our operational plan, so I should address it. We do look for, as you say, diversity in our workforce. We're actually struggling just attracting people, to be honest, at the moment in recruitment, particularly with the operational staff. It's becoming quite difficult. Gender balance is obviously very much a topical thing, and we have a really good balance, I would suggest, in the administrative and corporate areas. very much the opposite in our operational areas. So all those things, so balance is across age is another element. So balance is basically using all encompassing to say that, you know, we should be in balance with the community we serve, by age, by demographic, education, all those things. We should be an employer on all levels. And we do our best, but it is a very difficult area to be in. We're working on our workforce plan, which gets reviewed every council. So that we are going to have an updated workforce plan, because it is one of the less mature documents for local government, I would suggest, compared to the traditional financial asset management. The workforce plan is one that I think as an industry has been a bit difficult to get our heads around, but it's getting better, and a lot of good examples across some larger councils, which we'll be reflecting on. But essentially that's what we're looking for. But again, increasingly in some ways we do reflect the community of Cabonne, which is sometimes not as diverse as some other population areas around us.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, you've just given me a really nice segue into the change that I was actually going to ask for, propose, and that is around diversity. So I'm proposing that actually we consider changing the wording to develop, maintain and retain a balanced, diverse and skilled workforce. In that way, then, as I said earlier, it's pretty obvious where we'd be heading. And then if you're going to be held accountable for maintaining and retaining, or building and retaining a diverse workforce, then that would then flow down through your reports and through to the other leaders. So I think it's important that we actually do that. We actually get that word diverse in there. And the reason being that what it does is there are two types of discrimination, fairly obviously. One is overt, which is so obvious. That's what you see from that, the example of being that Queensland senator who was there only for a very short time frame, his name will remain unmentioned, straight out overt racist. However, there are other less obvious ways that people demonstrate some of that racism, and they are hidden ones. When you have something in your operational plan where it actually refers very clearly to our desire to actually create and retain a diverse workforce, then it makes it much more difficult for those people to actually stay under the radar. I'm not saying that we have those people in Cabonne Council, I hope we don't, but it makes it easier for the leaders of your areas and deputy general managers and yourself to identify it and deal with it, whether that's through education or whether it's through other means.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to, one of the head authors of the document sitting to my right, we can update that. It's up to you if you want to have a resolution to reflect that, but we can certainly, it doesn't go against the spirit of what's in the operational plan, so therefore adding a word I don't think will cause any issues, and it's still out on display, so we're still resolved to accept that document later on down the track, so that's no problem at all.
Thank you. Just procedurally, Joe, do I have a seconder for that? I don't think I did. I think I had Councillor Batten moved it. Councillor Nash will be seconder then. Yeah. Any further discussion on that at all? All right. I'd like to thank the finance team again for the work they've done on that report, and the management also for their work on that PMR reporting. Councillor Davison,
Yeah, I'd back you up on that too. It's a very comprehensive report and it's easy to follow for a simpleton like me. The thing about the budget is I'd just like to once again highlight that I had a good look at it last night as I could on this little mongrel thing. Can I suggest that the next council gets real computers? Thank you. The budget credit, if you like, that's left in the balance is $95,000 on a $50 million budget, which is 0.002% of the budget. It's very, very slim. And all you want is the minorest of hiccups. And we're going to crash into a deficit situation. Now, I hope that won't happen, but, stranger things have happened. We only need a whole lot of rain and we could end up with a lot of money needed for emergency services or whatever. My question is that, I know you've answered the question before, but I once again want to highlight that I think at the moment money is so cheap, we should be looking at borrowing money right now at the 0.1% or whatever it happens to be, or the lowest rate we can get through the state government, to give us that bit of a buffer. We haven't got to necessarily use it, but if we have it, and we need to call on it, we can use it. Whereas in 6 months, 12 months or 18 months' time, where the economy goes to, the way it's growing at the moment, it's got to start to inflate. There's no doubt about that in my mind, and most other economists could think the same way too. And I think that at the moment we have the opportunity to borrow at very low rates, and we should be taking the best advantage of that, with the idea that we haven't got to use the money, we can return it, and the cost of returning it is going to be bugger all.
Mr Mayor, I certainly understand where you're coming from, Councillor, and you'll see that there is $2.3 million in loans in this budget, in our water and sewer funds projected forward. You're quite correct that we do need buffers and things. We do have reserves, and we do also have, obviously, a budget equalisation reserve that helps when we do have unforeseen expenditure. The idea of the budget is to go in with a plan, and this is the plan. We do have quarterly budget review processes, so as things change, like I talked about the age of fishes or whatever, things do change, and there is a notion that budgets, only stay in place really for a short time after they're passed, and then we have to deal with unforeseens, as you're talking about. So we do have general fund reserves. We don't have as much in the water sewer fund reserves, and that's equal to us borrowing. We equally can go to T-Corp and other borrowings, but under our regulations and so forth, we have to have a purpose for borrowing, so we have to sort of be responsible and ensure that what we're borrowing for is appropriate at the time, and if we've got funding in our budgets to do that work first, that's what we should do. But we have got capacity to borrow, and there is obviously a new delivery program being built from here for the next 12 months, and things like I've flagged that possibly pools, we have renewable energy projects on that are, I suppose, have that intergenerational benefit, which are much more important to borrow for than maybe the quicker, I suppose, capital. And we've been so lucky with grants as well. But that, you're quite right, that could all stop, and probably will in the next 12 to 18 months. But if we do foresee something happens unforeseen, we'd come back to council with a budget review or a change and/or borrowings as we need it. It's just, I suppose, it does show the finance team's done a good job of, we actually aim for a balance. I've been aiming for balanced budgets. I think that's the best way to go. But with the ins and outs, we've come out with a $94,000 surplus, and there's obviously a lot of change and turmoil to go over the next 12 months because we do have ins, twos and froms reserves, which can get complicated. We do have an overhead an amount to manage. But I think it's a good, strong, healthy budget that shows that this council is optimistic and putting in place infrastructure for the future at a time when it's most needed.
I appreciate that view, Mr. General Manager. The other worry that I've got is the grant budget at the moment in this budget is about almost $12 million. And if anything happens in the state government and try to recover some of their largesse in the last 12 to 18 months, I can see that being a bloody big hole punched into that. And that, of course, will once again impact upon our budget. And if we can bring forward some of those expenses that you talked about, the solar and that sort of thing, and if we could bring those plans forward and borrow against those, that'll be certainly bring the thing back up and wouldn't mean that we have to borrow money later on at 5, 10, 20%, whatever it happens to be. I went through with a business when we had interest rates of 20% or 21%. We got two. We were naughty boys, and that almost broke us. So thank you very much.
Councillor John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to the General Manager, just following some commentary and just some confusion in the community, just around our water charges. So for some time, this council's been aware that bucket of money's a little bit tight, but just so I'm wondering if the General Manager could please explain. I mean, the council have been given this in the past, but just to reiterate, why it's proposed to increase the charges of water in Molong and how that sits with the rest of our communities, and also some works that we need to do in there, and how tight things are, and that only those who use that will be charged. If we could just get a general explanation, please.
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor. More broadly speaking, obviously our water utility is quite a small water utility, and we all know it services Molong, and it also now, in a potable sense, going out, Matt, the Deputy General Manager, Infrastructure, working hard to get the water to Yeovil and to Cumnock. The water access fees have been raised because you'll also see, as there was an amount in borrowings, so there needs to be some upgrades to the pardon me, I'm just trying to think, the hydrants around, sorry, excuse me, had a mental blank, the hydrant reticulation around Molong, so that has to be borrowed for to get that up to speed, and also inlet works at our sewage treatment plant in Molong has to be upgraded because we're having some issues with our pH and EPA regulations. So in order to do that, we only have relatively small funds, and we have to borrow some money, and then there is obviously a cost of paying those funds back. So that's predominantly why those fees have been raised, and they are separate funds. They're not, you can't use roads money to augment your water plant, and you can't use your water to augment your roads. So a lot of people think rates are rates, but there's a water fund, a sewer fund, and a general fund, and there's also waste, which is separate again. So all those amounts of money, they're like separate businesses. So it doesn't, one lot of reserves doesn't equate to the other. So we haven't got very large reserves in water or sewer. General funds are looking a lot healthier. Overall, we're still quite viable, but these things have to be paid for, and unfortunately, we have to raise the fees accordingly, and that's what's happened.
Or just a quick supplementary, if I could. How does the raising of those fees for Molong bring Molong in line with the rest of the community? Because we are one shire, so I would assume that makes it equitable for all.
Well, it raises the equitability of it all, because Molong, in the sewage sense, pays much lower than Canowindra, Eugowra and our other villages. So it's around $200 or more difference between Molong's sewage treatment or sewage fees to the other funds. And so it's a matter for future councils. We've got to work and see whether we should be making them more equal across the Shire, and basically ensuring that all the funds are put together as one sewage fund, for Cabonne. Therefore, you can spread your risk, and you obviously can use monies across the Shire because you've got a more robust sewage reserve system, etc. Because there are some challenges going ahead with our ageing infrastructure that we have to address. But Molong fees are still markedly, and it's quite transparent in our fees and charges, they're still way below those being sustained by the other communities at this stage.
Okay, any further questions at all? No? All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. All right, move out of the ordinary meeting to our closed section of the meeting.